My mother recounted to me an account of something that happened to her a long time back before I was conceived. She lived in Brookshire Manor in Columbia, Missouri. A little history about Brookshire. First, essentially, there was a man named William Brookshire who used to get drifters and vagrants and let them know they could deal with his territory. What's more, he would kill them and cover them on his territory. One story, specifically straightforwardly, agreed with the story. She educated me concerning her extremely brief time frame there, in this lovely, completely outfitted with collectibles and unique everything, kept with everything looking good, and the lease was less expensive than most lofts at the time, despite the fact that it was plainly a house. 5-room, 3-story, completely outfitted. So the story goes that he was a horrible man. Tales had it that he killed and covered individuals on his territory. However, the main genuine civil case was one where he purportedly killed a major lumberjack by the name of Roderick Ness, justifiably. The person was in his home and taken steps to kill him for reasons unknown. I expect he understood that William Brookshire was a horrendous man. This was soon after he had a few odd 43 cows kick the bucket in one day because of strange conditions. For example, toxin and hunger when he was debilitated and unfit to keep an eye on his dairy cattle for a really respectable time frame. The Ness and him were in a heated contention, and he supposedly took steps to kill Brookshire by means of cutting, guaranteeing that he was a Sioux Indian and he had cut individuals previously and was not to be meddled with. Yet, William Brookshire raced to the highest point of the steps and got a shotgun from behind the railing, turned around, also shot the large man point clear in his mind, making him tumble down the steps to his demise. He was prosecuted for homicide, seen as at legitimate fault for homicide in the second degree in 1961. I also completed 10 years for this. During his time in jail, it was assessed that in excess of 10 individuals had likewise been killed and covered on his territory. After this, he wound up finding some kind of purpose for existing sentence and passed on in jail. This was in Boone District, Missouri. Roderick Ness and Richard Polly both lived in isolated rooms and were his ranch hands that tended to or attempted to watch out for his 40-plus cows, despite the fact that the necessary resources to do so were essentially non-existent. Presently, my mother's story is really freaky. Also, she told it to me, in a real sense, 10 minutes prior, very much like this. She was living in the house with 3 different men. Michael Bopp cherished, lifelong companion's father. Her significant other is my natural dad, Kent Langrader. What's more, a third man who she has never been happy with discussing as a result of his obscure past. A man by the name of Kevin. She doesn't recollect his last name. As far as she could tell, it got going gradually. They moved in and were unloading in William Brookshire's room. Each time, she would eliminate a unique work of art that Brookshire actually had held tight the wall and put her own canvas up and left the room. She would get back to her artwork being set arbitrarily around off of the wall, and Brookshire's painting back on the wall, impeccably evened out. This occurred for a little while, until the position of her work of art turned out to be more irregular, finding it in her flatmate's room. Then, at that point, flung down the steps until, at long last, in the chimney ground floor, previously lit and unrecoverable. Each time she returned, higher up, his artistic creation was still there, in amazing condition. Then, at that point, when she disposed of it, and had different canvases or potentially photographs on the wall in similar spots, they would tumble off. Some of the time, after a brief time frame, different times very quickly before having the opportunity and willpower to leave the room. One night, specifically, she was on the first floor doing stuff with two different flatmates. Michel was on the first floor. Kent was on the first floor. Also, Kevin and his sweetheart. At the time, Tina were both higher up. Tina was on the telephone. What's more, Kevin was cleaning up. Out of the blue, she heard an extremely noisy banging, trailed by broken glass, and Tina's shouts. Clearly, everybody on guard approached Tina's help and understood that it wasn't her in impending peril, yet rather my mom's snake, Jake the snake. No joke, very weak. A 14-foot Burmese python had hammered its head into the glass, harming itself in the process just to escape her room, Brookshire's room. One evening, approaching the finish of their time there, she was scrubbing down in the main room, Brookshire's shower room, at the point when she truly felt what she could accept for a moment. That was the soul of Ness, pushing toward her. She has forever loved singing hot showers. Even as a small kid, her room would be loaded up with steam from her taking them, long and hot. Yet, something about the soul pushing against her made that whole posterior of her body freezing cold, and each of the hairs all around her body stood up right away. Obviously, she leapt out of the shower and snagged Kent, and they remained at their other flatmate, Michael Mom's house, which was under 10 miles south. Michael likewise had an extremely enormous pit bull, exceptionally threatening animal. Despite the fact that she said he was a darling, the vast majority would be uncomfortable around him as a result of the sheer size of this thoroughbred monster. At around 2 a.m., 2 or 3 of them were drinking down steps when they heard 3 extremely boisterous banging commotions descending the steps, suggestive of a 275-pound huge monitor boots crashing against the wood grain on his plunge. Otis, the pit bull, considered this and promptly went on, aware of the area, to really take a look at it. Domains and such. Intuition. She expressed that when the canine made quick work of the steps, there was one particular beat on the wood railing. Furthermore, the canine was humiliated, ran quickly to the front entryway while pissing itself, and began crying. I don't mean crying like a canine who needs to get taken care of or utilize the bathroom when nobody has watched out for it. She said it was all the more a low groaning commotion, blended in with gasping and different clamors as clearly as possible to stand out. So obviously they generally left the property and stuffed their things in the following day and never thought back. We, in a real sense, left the following fucking day, and we won't ever think back. It was one of the most unnerving encounters of my life. This is the reason I trust in the paranormal.